Zakonski okvir na kojim se Eurimages oslanja u svom radu je Europska konvencija o filmskoj koprodukciji koja je stupila na snagu 1994. godine i pokazala se kao vrlo uspješan instrument u poticanju multilateralnih, ali i bilateralnih koprodukcija između europskih zemalja, to je zapravo europskih filmskih profesionalaca. No, vremena se mijenjaju i Eurimages je uvijek tu prvi da se mijenja sa vremenima koje se mijenjaju. Zato smo prije nekoliko godina, dok sam još uvijek bila u upravnom odboru Eurimagesa kao predstavnik Hrvatske, pokrenuli evaluaciju konvencije nakon tolikog vremena da vidimo kako je možemo modernizirati, kako je možemo prilagoditi na današnjoj situaciji na terenu. I nakon nekoliko godina, većinom proceduralnih peripetija, novi revidirani tekst konvencije usvojilo je Vijeće ministara Vijeća Europe i konvencija će biti otvorena za potpise 30. siječnja 2017. za vrijeme Međunarodnog filmskog festivala u Rotterdamu. Kao što sam ranije napomenula, iako je u srcu aktivnosti Eurimagesa potpora koprodukcijama i svi nas znaju po tome, Eurimages je puno više od toga. On također financijski potpomaže distribuciji prikazivanja europskih filmova u zemljama koje nisu članice programa medija. Dakle, mnoge zemlje ovdje koje su tek pristupile programu medija i Hrvatsko do 2008. su potporu distribuciji i potporu kino prikazivaštva dobivale upravo kroz Eurimages. Sad je ostalo još nekoliko članova Eurimagesa i naravno priključio nam se jedan silno siromašni član koji se zove Švicarska. Jer nisu više u mediji, to je pregovaraju da se vrate u mediju. Također, Eurimages je uvijek bio, i to je nešto o čemu bih htjela razgovarati sa mojim panelisticama, i njegov odbor, bili smo uvijek vrlo aktivni na problematici rodne ravnopravnosti u europskoj filmskoj industriji, to kroz aktivnost Eurimagesove radne grupe za rodnu ravnopravnost koja je osnovana 2013. sa mandatom da prikuplja, analizira podatke i na posljedku usvoji strategiju rodne ravnopravnosti Eurimagesa. To se dogodilo u listopadu 2015. godine. Tu strategiju prati vrlo detaljan akcijski plan, o čemu će govoriti gospođa Isabel Castro, zamjenica izvršnog direktora Eurimagesa, koja će biti s nama na panelu. Ja bi se sada vratila na Kanadu. Kad je Kanada dobila novog premijera 2015. godine i kad je premijer predstavio svoj kabinet, neko ga je pitao zašto žene, zašto minority i tako dalje, i on je odgovorio vrlo jednostavno, kaže because it's 2015. Dakle, za nas sve, za Eurimages, nadam se i za program medija u budućnosti, because it's 2016, because it's 2017. I ovo je nešto vrlo važno. Martina mi je proslijedila jedan članak prije 2-3 dana, da je telefilm Kanada, koji je jedan od najveći financijer zapravo javni u Kanadi, usvojilo baš istinski strategiju koja se zove 50-50 do 2020. godine. To su sve ovo su recimo dva polja u kojima bi željela razgovarati sa panelistkinjama, zato predlažem da mi se na ovoj pozornici pridruže gospođa Isabel Castro Martinez, zamjenica izvršnog direktora Eurimagesa, gospođa Jelena Popović iz National Film Board of Canada, gospođa Linda Beat, stručnjakinja za filmsko financiranje, i gospođa Lindsay Peters, voditeljica koprodukcijskog foruma Frontier u sklopu Međunarodnog filmskog festivala Fantasia u Montrealu. So now back to English. The first question that I want to ask Isabel, because she's been with Eurimages for so many years and seen many things happening. Unfortunately, she is leaving Eurimages as of 1st of January. And we are all going to be 31st. We are all going to be really sad. But Isabel, I mentioned in my keynote speech, if you can call it like that, I mentioned the changes of the European Convention on Cinematographic Co-Production. And it would be really nice if you can say in a couple of words, what does it mean? You know, actually, what are the two biggest changes from the old text? And how it plays in the context of smaller countries and how it plays in the context of the third non-European countries joining the fund.
Thank you. Maybe the first thing that I can say is speaking about the low audiovisual capacity countries is that the convention is a very good instrument for these countries, because these countries have not many, the possibility to have many bilateral treaties with many countries. So for them, the convention serves like a bilateral treaty. This is the first point. So it allows this country to co-produce with any country in Europe, although they have not a bilateral treaty with this country. And the new convention still reinforces this flexibility, because the new convention reduced the minima that are necessary to be considered like an official co-production. For instance, with the multilateral convention, the threshold before was 10%. Now, a small country can participate in a co-production with only 5%. And when we speak about the multilateral co-productions, with the bilateral co-production, the minimum rate is 10%, when before it was 20%. And the second point important is that this new convention is now open to countries outside Europe and outside the Council of Europe. That's why the revised convention is named now the Council of Europe Convention for International Co-Production, when before it was the European Convention.
So, in a way, just a little aside, when Isabel said it's very favorable to countries with low audiovisual capacity, it's just basically that it allows, let's call it level playing field, because that's the mot du jour today. Level playing field in terms of that it would be much easier for the smaller countries to become co-producers on the big countries' films, which have, of course, larger budgets. And the other, as you said, it's opening up to the third countries. But even before, in a way, we were doing it in a parallel, it was like maybe a parallel time. At the same time, Eurimages was working or instigated the changes of the convention, but at the same time, it started the negotiation process with Canada outside of this, you know, kind of the outcome. And you can tell us more. We had the working group, and you know, it went on. Tell us a bit more about how it went.
Yes, effectively, in the meantime, we have also worked on the how to open the fund to third countries. So in our statute was mentioned that we are only open to the European countries. So we revised the statutes, and the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe accepted it. This process started 2 years ago. The things are very lengthy in this framework. And now, effectively, we have the possibility to accept new third countries. And there is very recent news, because for Canada applied to be the first outside Europe country coming in Eurimages. And the Board of Management in October accepted this at the unanimity. And yesterday, the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe gave the green lights. So now the the following is that Canada will present an official request to become a member of the fund, and probably anything will be ready to start this cooperation from the 1st of January.
And now we've said, in a way, you know, from this European Strasbourg side, what has been happening. It's in a way a huge change and a very welcome change for Eurimages, but also I wanted to ask a bit, you know, because you are all from Canada, although Linda has been, you know, kind of the Europe-based and Europe consulting is, you know, what in your way that, just to give us a brief overview, because we are here a bit, we know everything about how the film is funded in Europe, you know, and you've probably heard certain things that you might have not known before. Just a small overview of the public financing and the financing in Canada, and what do you think that Canada joining Eurimages could mean? Of course, it's not going to happen overnight. It is going to be a process, you know, getting to know each other. It happened with all new members of Eurimages when the Southeastern European countries were coming in. But in a way, it always ended up, it's a cooperation, it's exchange of standards, the way of doing things.
Do you want me to start? I don't underestimate Canada. They've got between 50 and 60 co-production agreements, treaties, that are in active status at all times. And they've got a mini treaty with France. So a lot of Quebec France co-productions already happen. And in English Canada, there's a kind of two-way street. But basically, they've been co-producing with Ireland and England consistently for 30 years. So I think Canada's going to be faster into Eurimages than you're expecting. The overview of Canadian financing is that Telefilm Canada is the biggest national fund. It has a substantial amount of money, nothing close to CNC, but certainly more than most of the funds in Europe. There are provinces, all of whom have tax incentives. There is a tax incentive at a national level. If you play your cards right, for example, in Ontario, if you do digital, if you shoot outside of Toronto, if you do your post-production there, you can actually get 51% tax incentive. And then there are so-called regional funds. For us, they're provincial funds. The national broadcaster has a quota system. There are distributors and other TV stations that support film. So the average budget in Canada is about between $2.6 and $2.8 million for a feature, and somewhere around $500,000 and up for a documentary. So they actually do work remarkably similarly to what we see here. And I think part of the reason that Eurimages found it easy to deal with them is they speak the same language. Whether it be French or English, they speak the same financing language. And there's only one thing to warn you about: Canadians stick to the rules. Not quite as sticky as Canada does. Did you want to say something about animation?
Well, actually, maybe I could just add something about National Film Board. So that I obviously represent, as you can see on my multiple multiple logos on my T-shirt. So the National Film Board of Canada is not a fund. It's like Telefilm or SODEC or Conseil des Arts of Quebec or Canada Art Council. It is a production house, a publicly financed production house, which means that every Canadian contributes yearly a modest sum of $2 to the full NFB budget. Of course, that full yearly allocation is not going strictly and exclusively to producing, because there's also a mandate of archiving and distributing, and it is, but the main stronghold of the institution for the last 78 years has been producing content for, ultimately for public good. That includes documentaries. Something around like 50% of the allocation, production allocation, goes to documentaries, feature or short. 25% to animation, and 25% to interactive works that include VR or interactive documentaries. Or, and the mandate is not exclusively public good, but it is a Canadian perspective on Canada and the world. From the social perspective, but also creation and innovation, technology, should I say IMAX, should I say, I don't know, the idea of force was inspired to, like, George Lucas by Arthur Lipset film called 2187. No, not many people know that, but it is true. And so the NFB is a kind of a unique institution in the world, I think, which is obviously very happy to have to be part of the country that actually enters the Eurimages landscape.
So I can go.
She's being modest. It's won more Oscars than anybody else ever has, and not only that, it co-produces regularly with Europe.
Well, yeah, that was the second part of mine.
Yeah, there too, there's one Croatian-Canadian co-production animation film, which you heard this morning, Hedgehog's House. But we also entered into multilateral that's called Manivald, which is Estonia, Croatia and Canada. So we're very happy, and Croatia has got a bilateral treaty with Canada. And it's, you know, we inherited it from actually Yugoslavia. And it was done because of the animation, because there were strong ties in between Croatian and Canadian animators through the Zagreb Film and Zagreb School of Animation. So we're quite lucky. Out of the small countries, of small capacity countries present here, who has got bilateral treaties with Canada? Serbia.
Well, yeah, it is the same. Yeah, that's exactly.
And Macedonia and Bosnia, and like everybody. So yeah.
That is actually still stating 80-20.
Yeah, it's still 80-20. It's still 80-20. You know, but we have also a bilateral co-production treaty with Italy, which is still valid. It's 70-30. You know, it's from 71. But when you have a bilateral treaty, if the competent authorities, you know, you can go up to 90-10. But with the convention, you know, which is for the multilateral, it's, you know, in a way rigid. In those terms, we had to change it, you know, through formal ways to allow, you know, kind of this more flexibility, which reflects on what is happening on the ground, because the realities from the 70s and realities from the 80s are no longer. I would like to ask Lindsay, this year we had a small Croatian delegation visiting Frontier, which is a very unique co-production market during the Fantasia Genre Film Festival in Montreal. And I think, you know, I'm speaking in the name of the Croatian producers who were there. It was very, very successful. And of course, then we already knew that Canada was going to join Eurimages. And for example, I remember talking to quite a lot of Canadian producers, especially from English-speaking parts. Because the thing is that I think, Linda, they will have to diversify, because UK is not part of the Eurimages. So it has to be Ireland. And they told me that they've already started looking to the partners, you know, kind of outside of this English-speaking Ireland, UK. So, Lindsay, can you comment on that?
Sure, yeah. Well, I know at Frontier we're very excited about this development because we are one of the only, if not the only, industry platform to specifically connect North America with Europe. And our focus is quite niche. As Sanja mentioned, we're focused on genre films, which our definition of genre film includes horror, sci-fi, fantasy, action, thriller, and just to give you a bit of a sense of what we've currently been doing for the last few years. We select 20 projects per edition, 10 from North America, 10 from Europe, and we very much encourage a strong presence from the low production capacity countries as well. And we had a Croatian project in our lineup this year, Straguni. And so basically, how we are structured is we received in 2013 we received support from Media Mundos to expand to Europe, and since then we did 2 editions of our market each year, one in Brussels at the Brussels International Fantastic Film Festival and one in Montreal at Fantasia. So we started this biannual transatlantic circuit each year. And in 2017, we are evolving that model into a partnership with the Marché du Film of the Festival de Cannes, where we are collaborating on a financing forum for projects in the final stages of their financing. And we will also be doing industry networking activities in Cannes in May. And so we are also very eager to be providing a platform for Canadian producers to learn about the opportunities that Eurimages may bring, and vice versa as well.
May I add something?
Yes, of course.
Yes, I would like to come back on what Linda said before. Just to underline that, in fact, Telefilm Canada is our partner in Canada. And we have already supported many different co-productions with Canada, because it's true that we spoke about the number of bilateral treaties. We have counted that Canada has 31 treaties with European countries. So it's, but instead they present to us a very low number of official co-production. They have more or less 20-25 co-productions per year, but most of them are non-official co-productions. They are with USA, for instance, and very few until now with European countries, but I am sure that it will be developed in the future. In another way, coming back to the audiovisual capacity, it's obvious that Canada is a very big audiovisual capacity country. They have a lot of producers company, like Linda said, also a very good system for financing the co-production. And more than that, we are very close also in the way we think this job. We share common values. We want to promote the cultural diversity and film of art house films. And also because Telefilm Canada has the majority of the funding is to the co-production, in the same way that Eurimages. So I think we will have a very good partner, and probably we will receive very soon very good co-productions from Canada. The possibility now, this is very important to know, that in the past we can support co-productions with Canada, but limited to 30%. Now, with the adhesion of Canada, we can also finance majority Canadian co-production.
Okay, thank you, Isabel. And now for not for something completely different, but coming back to shared values, I hope, and diversity, cultural diversity. By diversity, I really want to come back to an issue that I mentioned in my little speech, and that is about gender equality. And that is, yeah, we are all women here, so I think it's very important, especially after Donald Trump was elected as the president of US, to speak about this. And in a way, as I said, Eurimages started working on this issue in 2013, setting up the working group for gender equality. And, you know, as Isabel was on the part of the Secretariat, which is the executive branch of Eurimages, because the board is composed of national representatives from the member countries. So, Isabel, can you tell, and, you know, there's also one important development, which is now in the Council of Europe. So I would like you to tell a couple of words, and then we can, you know, kind of talk about 50-50 by 2020 in Canada, and the things that are already in place.
So yes, it's true. It's for us a very important project. I say for us because I am for the Secretariat, the responsible of this project, but Sanja is in the board, the president of this working group. So we have worked together and very intensively during these 3 last years. So what we have reached, obviously, we started making a study to see what is the situation, and the situation showed that women are very few represented in the industry, and very often badly represented on the screen. So we convinced the board to adopt a strategy. It was last year, and an action plan. And we have developed from then certain measures. We don't speak about quota, but we just try to implement measures, trying to put on the light the work made by women. And in this way, we have decided on an award for the best film for a woman director. This award is named Audencia, and we have granted for the first time in April during the Istanbul Festival, and the next year it will be awarded during Locarno Festival. Then we have also decided to support different initiatives. For instance, we financed 3 scholarships for women to help them to develop their projects, and we do that in collaboration with the residencies in the Cannes, Berlin, and Venice. Okay. And then what we are doing in parallel is also to, in the political way, we try to obtain from the Council of Europe that it take a recommendation asking its country members to implement policies to promote the role of women in the industry. So this started last year with a declaration adopted in Sarajevo. And now the Committee of Ministers has accepted also to take this project. We have created a working group composed by different experts from different countries. And the 1st December, it's the next meeting of this working group, whose mandate is to draft the recommendation. So things are moving very quickly now, and probably by the end of the next year we will have this recommendation adopted.
Yeah, end of the next year, it's very quick in a time frame of the Council of Europe, you know, but that's because we were very agile. So, you know, back to Canada, this is obviously going to be one of the shared values in Eurimages. Jelena, during lunch, you told me, you know, we were talking about 50-50 by 2020 by Telefilm Canada, which was announced. It's now like, you know, kind of set. I'm not going to say set in stone, but it was an initiative, and now there's an activity plan and a policy. But you told me that in the National Film Board of Canada, that when you looked at, you monitor the things over the years, that that already you can see that you have a target and certain things have been achieved. So could you tell us a bit more about that?
Well, the NFB as a government institution obviously has an obligation to show a lot of pie charts at the end of every fiscal year. So these pie charts include all kinds of representations, one of which is a gender representation. We have always been very conscientious about it, I would say. But since last year, our commissioner, Claude Jolicoeur, has officially taken a position of gender parity and announced that the NFB is from now on obliged to have 50-50 directorial corps of, so everything that is produced at the NFB needs to abide by this 50% rule. At that very moment, I think of the announcement, if we looked back at our slate throughout the English program at that time, and it was already, in fact, more than that. It was at that very point, given the slate of that year productions, and given that a lot of feature documentaries were directed by women, it was something at 75%. So I think that that's something that is already ingrained at the NFB, into the NFB DNA for a while now. So this is just an official statement and obligation that the idea is now not to do the reverse discrimination.
So you can show Telefilm how it's done.
Yeah.
So Linda, would you go and talk?
The National Film Board started with genre parity at a point in time where I was the only female distributor in all of North America. I was never sure I was going to survive that. Sandy Wilson from Vancouver and Patricia Rozema from Toronto, between them won every award for every film they could and made their money back on the American market. They were embraced by. So at that point there was challenge for change, and there were initiatives inside of the board where they were really focused on making women an essential part of the environment. And that was early 70s, and it really did take 30 years to get there. But once they got there, you don't even see it in the board anymore. You don't notice it anymore. It's simply who is the best filmmaker. And I think that's the victory.
Yeah, I think it's also important to be looking towards the future, who the next Patricia Rozema will be, because I think right now when you think of Canadian film, you think of David Cronenberg, you think of Adam McGoy and Xavier Dolan. Those are the top three. So and Denis Villeneuve. So there does seem to be something wrong with that list there. But what we're going to be doing next year in Frontier is we are going to be doing targeted events for Canadian women filmmakers seeking a producer. For the last 3 years, we've worked with the Women in Film and Television Office from Vancouver on a genre concept contest that they've done for female screenwriters. So they're supporting women working in genre at the earliest possible stages, and that's something that's really important because I think, and I don't think Telefilm has really answered the question of how many submissions that they currently receive from women. So, because I think that's often an argument when you talk about gender parity is, oh, well, it should just be the best, submissions that you receive. That's what it should be determined on, not based on gender, just on the best quality. But I think an important question is how many women are even submitting in the first place, and how do we ensure that those quotas are increased as well?
Thank you, Lindsay. Are there any questions from the floor or because we need to wrap it up because we were running late. Questions? Anybody? No.
Could I make, as the intercontinental presence here, it's going to be easier for you to work with Canada than it is for you to work with France. I'm sorry to be so. So I just want to encourage you because there are new parts of the Canadian industry, older parts of the Canadian industry. There's a diversification of the industry. Canadians follow rules a little bit more than Europeans. You know, I live in Italy. But I really encourage you to try and forge links because when I speak to the filmmakers at IAVE, I often feel like I'm speaking to the filmmakers at the Toronto Festival. The similarity is much bigger than the dissimilarity. And I have a story to tell about Justin Trudeau and his "It's 2015." I saw that comment go viral. I was in Europe. And I turned on the CBC. I still watch Canadian Broadcasting Corporation news. And the anchor followed Trudeau on his first day of office. And unfortunately, Mr. Trudeau was coached to say, because it's 2015, by one of his press attachés, who was a woman.
Good. And Isabella would like to add something at the end regarding Croatia.
It's another point is in relation to the debate of this morning with the possibility of access to the support for small countries. I would like to say that in Eurimages, many small countries have been very well served by the fund. An example is Croatia. In the last 5 years, Eurimages supported 10 majority Croatian projects and 14 minority projects, representing a total of support of a little bit more than 1,700,000 euros. So this is a very, very good result. Overall, if we compare with the amount of the contribution paid by Croatia to Eurimages.
Yeah, I know you were going to say that. You're going to say, well done, Croatia, well done, Croatian filmmakers, because it is about the quality of projects. Always, as with the others, I would like to thank the panel. We have to move on, and thank you for being with us.